Out of the key players that oppose the International Whaling Commission, it's important to kind of understand the two sides to the argument as for why some countries would be for commercial whaling and why some countries would be against it. And out of the countries for commercial whaling, Japan seems to have the most influence over the older ones, as their country contains a significant amount of activists that are pro whaling. And this is because during World War II, Japan had dumped so many resources in defending their territories from the Allies that once the war ended, their country pretty much became poor. So they looked to whaling as a solution to feed their people. And it was cheap, it was nutritious, it was abundant. One whale could feed so many people, and it became a staple in their diet pretty much. In some regions, it actually became known as a delicacy. And the other reason that countries would defend it would be for business purposes. The IWC gave some of these countries that claim that whaling is a part of their culture a little bit of leeway in the means that if they were to whale for scientific research, um, they're able to keep the whale if it passes within their possession, and the meat and everything of the whale is fair game. So Japan had initially agreed on this, and as well as the other countries that were for whaling, as long as they provided catch numbers, documentation, and blood samples. The other reasoning would be outside of Japan, Norway and Iceland make a lot of money exporting whale meat to Japan and the regions that whale meat is in high demand. So if whaling were to be stopped, these countries are claiming that there would be a significant amount of people who depend on this business to make a living, and without whaling, these people would be out of work. And for these people involved in this business, the basic formula behind this mentality is that some areas of Japan still have high demand for whale meat and therefore will pay more per kill. This understandably motivates these whalers to bring in a high yield, therefore getting more profit out of every time they go out into the waters. And it has been shown that some of these whalers believe that they're actually helping fishermen by taking the predators out of the water and freeing up more fish. However, this unfortunately is not the case. So now we're going to look into why countries want to stop commercial whaling. As mentioned earlier, the IWC gave some leeway to countries that claimed whaling was a part of their culture by saying there was limitations and restrictions on how many whales they can catch. However, it seemed like, and was eventually proven, that countries continue to exploit the usage of the quote unquote term research because that was legal under the IWC rules. Um, they would keep capturing whales, keeping them on their boats till they died, and then freezing the meat and sending it back to their mainland. As well as countries like this, Russia, over a 25-year period, had underreported the amount of whales they killed by 180,000. And Japan's coastal catchings of whales as well were severely underreported compared to what was photographed and what they've heard through inside sources. Um, in other words, the IWC was pretty much like, we gave you guys some slack here, and obviously you're taking advantage of it. So now it had a severe backlash, and Japan eventually seceded from the IWC as well as some other countries, and they continue this practice today. The second and obviously most important reason would be for conservation purposes. As a human population in total, overhunting and killing at one point had almost driven whales to extinction, and it was until we kind of sat back and thought to ourselves, we need to do something about these numbers, that the basis for the International Whale Commission came about. It's an attempt to stabilize the numbers of falling whales, and despite research saying that it'll never happen, the IWC hopes to bring awareness to these mammals today because they still face great dangers, and this would include modern factory ships. Whaling technology has significantly improved over the years, and now these ships can stay months out at sea, can process whales at sea, and can travel in big groups in order to bring in a bigger yield, thus taking more whales out of the ocean in one period. So now we look in the perfect scenario where we're able to convince corporations to look at the bigger picture rather than the short-term benefits of their actions. And we look at the world if we stopped commercial whaling. First, it's important to understand their role in the ecosystem. Whales are apex predators, meaning they are the top of the food chain. Upon feeding on their prey, being plankton and krill, they push them up to the surface and allow them more time to reproduce because now they have access to the sun. More of these means it feeds more of the prey fish for other species. They also play a role in the oceanic carbon cycle in multiple ways, one of which would be in their own feces that releases nutrients to the water, being nitrogen and iron, that plankton and small krill need to survive. And this also gives them the energy they need to keep reproducing, and thus providing more of these creatures which filter out carbon from our environment. Another way in which whales do this is when they gulp feed, pushing themselves up from the depths of the ocean. They knock up a lot of krill and plankton with them, and this gives them more opportunity to feed and to reach the sunlight, which therefore, once again, boosts their um, reproduction rates. So obviously whales play a key role in their ecosystem, and obviously they play a key role in the business world as well as some cultural aspects of most countries. So even if we were to somehow convince everybody to stop commercial whaling, it brings us to the question, are we too late? And fortunately that answer leans more towards the yes side. Research conducted in Australia that analyzed over 122 years of commercial whaling in the 20th century has shown us that even by 2100, the whales will still not have recovered to their pre-whaling numbers, and that's just a lot. However, every small step counts, and the IWC is going to continue fighting against these countries which still practice commercial whaling today in hopes of preserving these mammals for many generations to see and to also protect the ecosystems in which they inhabit.